Silksong had a lot to live up to. Being Hollow Knight's 8 years in the making sequel, fans obviously created some unrealistic expectations, but how does Silksong compare to its predecessor, and where did Team Cherry go wrong? Hello everyone, my name is Frog19, and today I want to tackle a full game review and breakdown of Team Cherry's design of Silksong. This video is broken into 4 parts, starting with the expectations that Hollow Knight left to how Team Cherry failed to meet the same standard in Silksong. Specifically, I want to focus on their own insecurities about the game's direction and their band-aid solutions to combat them. And as a bonus, I'll showcase how this is similar to another developer and explain how they fixed their design philosophy. And let me just say that this video was broken down scientifically and is 100% objective, so if you disagree, it means you're wrong. Also, did you know about YouTube's new secret hype feature? It's the single best way to promote a video, so if you enjoy gaming content and Silksong, make sure to hype this video, I would really appreciate it. I've still never got a hype point on my channel. And subscribe if you haven't, of course. The world of Hollowknight is fantastic in every way. Well, almost. With mystery around every corner and difficult enemies to challenge, the world is alive yet somber and lonely. Throughout the game, you receive new abilities that give you more movement options, such as dash or double jump. And each one of these abilities can then be used in a previous area to unlock new rewards, areas, or to progress the story. Team Cherry masterfully curated the world so that even in the intentionally annoying areas, you wouldn't be forced to stay in one place or one frustrated state of mind for too long due to how remarkably interconnected the world was. The combat in Hollow Knight is balanced yet punishing. Needing to damage enemies to gain soul to heal is a great mechanic, and it promotes aggressive, dance-like battles. The bosses are designed to reflect the player's progression and power without any unreasonable difficulty jumps. So without spending too much time talking about the previous game, let me just say I think Hollow Knight is a 9.5 or even a 10 out of 10 game. After the 8 years it took Hollow Knight for Silksong to come out, fans grew restless, constantly pestering Team Cherry for updates and information, and relentlessly anticipating announcements at every game show. Fans began to expect the world from this game, expecting a bigger, better, more engaging world full of even more secrets than the original with a better movement system and story. And Team Cherry saw the anticipation and continued to develop the game at the proper pace that they deemed necessary, and after 8 years, Silksong released. Now obviously it would be unfair to assume Team Cherry would deliver another flawless or near flawless game, and I made sure to manage my personal expectations. But after beating the game and sinking more hours into it than the original, I'm still left with a sour taste in my mouth. So where did they go wrong? Why is Silksong so much worse than Hollow Knight, and can I even consider it to be a great game? Okay, I have a lot to cover in this chapter, so I'm going to go quick. Let's start with the biggest thing, Team Cherry's insecurity with difficulty. Silksong is meant to be hard. We knew it would be. Hollow Knight is famously very hard as well, so why is Silksong's difficulty a problem? Well, the problem is the approach that was taken to ensure difficulty. Starting off with the most widely criticized new addition to the game, double damage. Now, double damage existed in Hollow Knight, sure, and I'll talk about that in a second, but Silksong's use of it was objectively excessive. It feels like half of the enemies deal double damage and 90% of the bosses do, whereas in Hollow Knight it was reserved for final bosses and hugely telegraphed attacks that visually appear to be stronger, therefore making the double damage feel more fair. The biggest argument I see in the defense of double damage is that in Silksong you heal 3 hearts. However, I'm going to argue that that makes the game even harder, because you need to hit the enemies 3 times as much to heal 3 times as much. But if you get interrupted while healing, you lose 3 hearts of silk as opposed to 1 heart of soul. On top of that, at the start of the game when you have 5 masks, if you get hit for 2 hearts, you can choose to heal now, wasting 1 heart of silk, or choose to get hit again, going 1 hit from death, then healing, still not being at full, getting hit again, being 1 hit from death for a second time, then healing again to finally be at full without wasting any silk. It's abundantly clear that Silksong's healing mechanic was not designed for double damage, or vice versa. Another way this game is vastly worse than Hollow Knight comes through its exploration. Now I'll admit the world is still very engaging and fun, even with the spamming flying enemies that no matter what will dodge your attacks and snipe you from a mile away. Yes, I'm talking about you, Citadel Bell throwers. However, where Silksong's exploration improves, it detracts from one of the most enjoyable and rewarding systems from Hollow Knight and Metroidvanias in general, and that's backtracking. Silksong's philosophy on backtracking seemed to be non-existent, because I don't think there's a single moment in the first 2 acts where you get an ability in one area, then need to go back to a previous area to unlock new story progression. As an example, in Hollowknight, you see the Crystal Peak caves, but don't have Desolate Dive, so you explore throughout the game until the city. Then, through learning Desolate Dive can break floors, you backtrack back to the caves to discover a new area that is needed for progression. This doesn't really exist in Silksong until you get Silksong in Act 3. The closest thing to this would be Clawline. However, even that you could argue that its main use is still in the same region you get it, the Citadel. Now this was really upsetting for me because combat is not my favorite part of games, even as someone who's 100%ed like Elden Ring, Bloodborne, and yes, Hollow Knight. Exploration is always my favorite, and the backtracking in Hollow Knight was so magical, I found it a real shame that it was mostly omitted from Silksong. Finally, the last major problem I'm going to briefly address is that the game doesn't feel like it's meant to be purely fun. And I don't mean that it's challenging, as some of these challenging parts became my favorite aspects in the whole game with the absence of like better exploring, but what I mean is that the game feels like before anything else it was meant to be annoying, and I think the main reason for this is... So what I mean by Band-Aid solution is a solution to a problem that can be easily and lazily slapped on without any thought and call it a day. Think of punching a hole in your wall while fighting Groll, then covering it with a painting. It doesn't fix the wall, it doesn't make you better at the game, but at least you can't see the hole. It's a Band-Aid solution. So what are some examples of these in Silksong, and how can you tell they are Band-Aid solutions and not thoughtfully designed? Good question, and luckily very easy to answer. The first major Band-Aid is double damage. It's clear Team Cherry wanted the game to be harder, but oftentimes would fail to design a hard fight and instead choosing to slap on double damage to a boss to artificially increase difficulty. This becomes obvious when we look at a few of the first bosses, Bellbeast, Widow, and Morwing. Bellbeast basically has 2 or 3 moves and would be a complete pushover, so Team Cherry decided to do double damage instead of designing more moves. Widow, on the other hand, is a much more elegantly designed boss with multiple moves and attacks and evasive maneuvers. However, most of her attacks only deal 1 heart despite being a later game boss than Bellbeast. Why? Well, it's because they didn't need to artificially inflate the difficulty. Therefore, no need for a Band-Aid. And Morwing further proves this argument, as originally all moves did double damage, and again, Morwing only has a few moves available, just like Bellbeast. However, when players complained, Team Cherry nerfed some of the damage, which proves that the increased damage of attacks was not integral to the design, and instead was used purely for difficulty. The second Band-Aid solution is enemies and gauntlets. Think of a boss in Silksong that itself only has a few attacking moves. Savage Beastfly maybe? Sister Splinter? How about those brothers in Deep Dogs? Do you notice a trend between these bosses? That's right, they all spawn regular enemies. Another Band-Aid solution to increase difficulty without any extra effort in design. And sometimes, if we're lucky, a boss will follow a gauntlet like Groll, who in itself is the worst designed boss, dealing all double damage, static environmental hazards, spawning enemies, and a miserable run back. Don't even get me started on the Act 3 heart fights and how multiple of them follow a respawning gauntlet, one of which needing to fight 3 gauntlets just to unlock the shortcut to the final gauntlet. Do you understand how insane that sentence was? And yet it's 100% accurate. Also, I'm not totally sure about this, so I'd love if someone could tell me, but I strongly believe that this game also has input reading on some of the projectile throwing enemies, but because I don't know for sure, I'm not going to talk about it much. Now, some of you might be saying that this is all fine and,
I don't mind any of these things, you just need to get good.
Well, my friend, let me tell you a story. The phrase get good did not originate from the Hollow Knight community. In fact, it's much older and has been used in the Dark Souls community for years, especially in the games following Dark Souls 1, such as Bloodborne. Anytime someone would complain about difficulty or ask for advice, they would be gifted with nothing but comments and responses telling them that they need to get better. People believed FromSoft to be this god-tier developer who could do no wrong, and if you disagreed with one of their choices, it simply meant you were bad at the game. Fortunately, this mentality has faded slightly from their fanbase in recent years. However, Team Cherry is at the exact same position that FromSoft once was, with their games following a hugely successful, infamously difficult game. I believe that Silksong fans will, as Dark Souls fans do now, look back and realize that the developer is not always right, and will sometimes make choices that go against the game's best interest. My first roadblock in Silksong was Morwing. So I looked up videos to help, and the comments were filled with people saying if you can't fight Morwing, this game isn't for you, and you need to get better. And if you choose the fight, you might as well quit because you won't be able to succeed in Silksong. Well, I cheesed Morwing, and after beating the game, I can confidently say that Morwing is still the hardest boss I have fought up to this point after Carmelita in Act 3. But still, I was able to beat the game despite having cheesed Morwing, and I don't regret doing it. He was too hard. And he was not designed well, and it may be a skill issue, but it was also a skill issue on Team Cherry's part. They are not all-knowing and will make mistakes, so we as a community should help one another properly instead of these hand-me-down, has-been, get-good comments that have been spread for over a decade. So as I said before, I believe Hollowknight is a near-flawless game, and at worst, a 9.5 out of 10. So where does Silksong land? Well, personally, because of how Team Cherry chose to remedy their own flaws in design, I can't confidently say that Silksong is great. It's not bad at all. I mean, I mostly enjoyed it, but it's only good, not great. This makes me really sad because I want to like it more, and maybe if I modded it to remove some of these lazy band-aid solutions, I could enjoy it more. But as it stands, I think Silksong is a solid 6, or maybe a 7 out of 10 if I'm being generous. It's good, but not great. Anyways, let me know what you think of Silksong and what you think of my arguments. I hope you enjoyed the video and came out of it with a new perspective. If you did enjoy it, consider subscribing. We just passed 10,000 subscribers and I want to see how far we can go. But that's it for now, so as always, stay kind, take it easy, and bye bye.